Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. No conflicts of interest. Motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries, and we are on to the reports of the president.
We can now read the report. We're very pleased to have Andy and Andy for Southeast Texas done housing over the years. Andy is our director of housing. He has been with housing for 11 years. But his experience in housing and working with students
Thank you, Tracy. President Alberti, board members, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity this afternoon to speak to you about something that I'm honestly very passionate about, college housing. I think it's a little bit unique to Southeast Tech because for most of my work, academics kind of takes the passenger seat. I'm focused more on what happens to students outside of the classroom rather than inside of the classroom. So I want to talk to you a little bit about today who we are, where our students come from, what we do, and kind of what we're looking forward to in the future as far as some particular strategies, some things that we'd like to see on our campus moving forward. So just to give you some basic information about housing at Southeast Tech. We started housing in 2003 with our first residence hall, called Nikolai Hall. That currently houses 100 residents. In 2005, we doubled our occupancy with the addition of Indera Hall. We use the same blueprints to build both of those buildings, so they're identical buildings. Thank you. They're identical buildings. One houses 100 students, the other one houses 102 students. So altogether, we have 54 units in our housing complex. Those house 202 residents. So about 10% of the students at Southeast Tech live in my housing complex. Of those units, 48 of those are 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. Those house 4 students. We do have a few 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom units that house 2 residents. I like that flexibility because while most of my students are traditional college age, I've had students as old as 54 stay in my housing complex. As you can imagine, that's hard to match with 3 18-year-old roommates. So those 2 bedrooms work really, really well for that. We do have on-campus live-in staff as well. We have 2 housing coordinators that I'll talk a little bit about here in just a minute that live in the complex as well. We also have the Boyce Marshman Center. My students and I refer to it as the Link. It's in the center of the complex. That is the common area that houses all of our recreational equipment. It's also where we do a lot of our student programming. One thing I should mention about housing, and it's unique, that is unique to Southeast Tech, is we're the only technical school in the state that actually operates on-campus housing. There are no other tech schools in the state that have on-campus housing. Mitchell Tech has adjacent housing, but they don't operate it. So we have a very kind of unique relationship with Southeast Tech that I'll get into a little bit here next. Just to give you an idea about our governance, we are owned by a foundation. We are owned by the Southeast Technical Institute Housing Foundation. We have 5 board members. Those members are advised by administrators and housing staff. We meet quarterly. But it is operated by Southeast Technical Institute. So myself and my staff are all employees of the Sioux Falls School District. We are a separate entity from Southeast Technical Institute. We maintain our own budget. We hire all of our own maintenance and groundskeeping staff. So while we do partner very closely with Southeast Tech, we are a separate entity. And the reason for that is in our Constitution, there is a clause that says school boards cannot own or build student housing. So it's kind of a unique relationship. We work very closely with, but yet we're still separate from Southeast Tech. Here's our staff for 2018-2019. Like Tracy was saying, my name is Andy Van Zandt, and I'm the director. I've been at Southeast Tech for 11 years, and I've been involved with residence life for 14. I have 2 housing coordinators. Those are my live-in staff. Tara Carruthers, who is in her 4th year at Southeast Tech. Kim Furstenberg, who's in her 1st year. The unique thing about our coordinators is they also teach. as well. They teach our academic recovery course at Southeast Tech, and they also work and live in housing for a portion of their week as well. We do have our own dedicated housing security officer. He is a deputy sheriff with the county sheriff's department. I'm sad to report that Richard Johnson is leaving on Friday, so we will have a vacancy there. He was an amazing security officer. The students really appreciated him, so I want to make sure and thank him for his service as he moves back to the road. So, to give you some information on some demographics on who our students are, what's the type of student that finds housing attractive and is moving into housing. I apologize for this being a little small, but this kind of gives you an idea of where our students are coming from. And they come from exactly where you think they do, just outside of driving range from Sioux Falls. So if you draw one circle 50 miles outside of Sioux Falls and another one 150 miles outside of Sioux Falls, they would fall in that donut. We do have a little bit of a spike when you look back, look a little bit more forward to the 200 to 250 because Aberdeen and Pierre fall in that group. But any city of size in South Dakota, I typically draw a lot of students from Rapid City, Aberdeen, Pierre, Yankton, Vermilion, things like that. Even though most of them come just outside of driving range from Sioux Falls, we kind of come from all over the place. Most of the students come from South Dakota, Iowa, Minnesota, but as you see over the last 4 years, we've had students come from a number of states. If I would go back farther than that to the time where I actually began, I could probably fill in most of the states west of the Mississippi, and I've had students from Alaska, I've had students from Florida, really anywhere in between. Most of the students who come from a distance usually have some sort of connection to the area, either family or something like that, but we do offer some programs at Southeast Tech that aren't offered in a lot of places, so we do drop them a bigger geographical footprint than many people probably would expect. Some additional demographic information, and again, I apologize for the size, but just to give you some basic information about who our students are. Like the rest of Southeast Tech, most of my housing students are predominantly white. We don't have a large portion of minority students. I know that's an effort that Southeast Tech is working towards, increasing our diversity on campus, and Southeast Tech, or housing would like to do that as well. Like I said, most of my students are traditional college-age students. Most of them do receive some sort of financial aid. ACT scores, historically, over the past 4 years, my ACT scores are going up. The amounts of students who are receiving Pell Grants is going down, as are the reported disabilities and first-generation students. Just to kind of summarize this table, each year that we move forward in housing, my incoming students are better prepared for post-secondary education than their counterparts were the year before. So they're become, like I said, higher ACT scores, higher GPAs, more prepared for the post-secondary world than the previous year. This is a very busy chart. So this is contract and new housing residents by month. This is my brand new students when they contract for housing. That red line in the middle kind of shows you what our average has been over the past 4 years. So typically March and April are our busiest contracting months. However, in 2018, the admissions at Southeast Tech accelerated the admissions process. They made some modifications to make it a little bit easier for students to get accepted quicker. So those green bars that you see in January and February were from last year. So we filled up at the end of February last year for this past fall semester. And I can tell you this year we filled up for the following fall semester, fall 2019, last week. So February 25th, we filled up for our housing complex. So we are in very high demand. I'm also starting to see a shift inward a little bit with the students, where they're coming from. I'm starting to see a lot more students from Del Rapids, Baltic, Canton, that want that college experience. They don't have to live on campus, but they kind of want that experience. They want to live on their own. And also within the city of Sioux Falls, I'm starting to see a lot more students as well. This gives you an idea of my returning students. So we are able to retain a lot of our students from year to year. The pink and blue is just the gender gap. But as you can see, last year, again, we had to accelerate our returning student process because of our new students being accepted quite a bit faster. So we also saw a lot of returning students come back, in fact, a lot more so than in previous years. What we've discovered is if we get students contracted into housing early, they stay committed to that contract, and they'll come to Southeast Tech. The number of students that cancel their contracts and leave Southeast Tech is a lot lower for housing students than it is for the students as a whole. So, This is one of my favorite ones, our fall-to-fall retention rate. So that yellow dotted line, that 68%, that's our institutional goals. That's what Southeast Tech is reaching for. That blue line is where Southeast Tech has been over the past few years, and the green line is housing. And this isn't necessarily indicative just to Southeast Tech. There are a lot of studies that will tell you that students who live on campus usually perform better academically and have a higher degree of satisfaction with their college experience. And just like it is in the workplace, it is in the school. The more satisfied you are with your experience, the better your performance is going to be. So we'll still take credit for some of that, though. What are we trying to do in working with our students? We really have 5 goals at housing: relationship building, communication skills, problem-solving skills, focusing on wellness, and institutional values. And I'm just going to go over them in a little bit more detail here. Relationship building, my office runs off of relationships. You can't have a good college housing experience without having good relationships. I've never had a student tell me they wish they talked to their roommates less. So we spend a lot of time coaching students on relationships, giving them information about how to develop good relationships, and that starts even before they move into housing. We have a roommate resource guide that we send out with their housing assignments. It gives them a lot of topics to talk about. It gives them some facts and fictions versus with what makes a good roommate. If there is a roommate conflict, we spell out our roommate mediation process so they know exactly what's going to happen when they have those arguments with their roommates. We partner a lot with our Southeast Tech student activities on events. We don't want our students just to get to know students in housing. We want them to get to know the students on our campus as a whole. We do our own activities as well, but anytime we can partner with student activities to enhance an event or create a larger group of students that would be interested in that event, we want to make sure and do that. Building student-staff relationships, that starts right as students move in. We always have staff available to walk them up to their rooms, go through the move-in process. As you can imagine, that's a very stressful and kind of interesting time for students. They don't know where they're going, they don't know what they're doing. So when we try to meet with those students, let them know exactly what the process is, we develop that relationship right from the beginning. We do have floor meetings at the beginning of every semester to go over safety information and just introduce ourselves as staff. And we do a lot of one-on-one meetings, and that can cover the gamut of academic problems, personal issues, helping people find a good car mechanic. It can be really anything. We also do a lot of passive programming. What I mean by passive programming is bulletin boards, flyers, things like that. We want to make sure students have information on campus resources. We give them relationship tips. We've had passive programming regarding alcohol usage, healthy recipes, you name it. We change them monthly to give them good information. Communication skills, like I said, we do conflict resolution and mediation with that mediation guide. That really helps students organize their thoughts. If they have an issue with one of their roommates, sometimes they just want to be angry. That usually doesn't get us very far, so we have them actually fill out a form that helps them organize their thoughts. What is it that they really want? What are they willing to put forward to get what they want, and what do they see in their minds as a compromise? So we're trying to build those conflict resolution skills. I think that's really important because in any employer of size that you're going to be working at, there's probably going to be somebody that you're not naturally just going to connect with. So developing those positive conflict resolution skills early and using them, I think will really help them in the workplace. We also use, we've given them tips on meeting with instructors. You know, what happens if your learning style just isn't matching their instruction style? How do you communicate that with your instructor? Tips on communicating with employers, tips on communicating with law enforcement. Officer Johnson was a great introduction to law enforcement. A lot of times my students have never had an interaction with a law enforcement officer, so that's been a great thing for them. And again, with that one-on-one meetings. And as with most people, we live off of emails. We tell our students you need to check your emails early, you need to check them often. You're going to miss information that you're going to need if you're not checking your email daily. Problem-solving skills, again, all that's through email communications, one-on-one meetings. We do have a program at Southeast Tech called Southeast Cares, where faculty and staff can enter in referrals about students that may be struggling. Housing staff also has access to that, and we have the ability also to enter our own referrals into that system. So if there is something that happens in housing that we think faculty and staff should be aware of, they have access to that information, and we in turn have access to their information regarding their classwork. Because as you would imagine, things that happen off campus tend to bring themselves on campus. The performance that you have academically is affected by external factors. So the more information that we can get, the bigger picture, the better we can help those students. Some other problem-solving skills that we do just in housing, we have a housing contract appeal form. So in order to stay eligible for housing, students need to maintain a 2.0 grade point average cumulative. If they don't meet that standard, we don't just tell them they can't come back. there is an appeal process, and the appeal process isn't just write us a paragraph that tells us why you think you should be let in. There's about an 8-page document that has them go through their entire previous semester, what all their classes were, what their grades were, where they went wrong, how can they be more successful in the future, what are the external factors that affected your performance. We really make them sit down and think about what it is that happened and how they can correct that in the future. We also have something called a non-student status agreement. This is a really unique thing to Southeast Tech. I don't know if there's any other schools that do this. If a student were to terminate from Southeast Tech, that is, they would remove themselves from their classes in a fall semester, they don't necessarily have to move out of housing. If they promise us that they're going to re-enroll in the spring semester, as long as they're not violating any of our housing policies, they will be able to remain in housing and not have to move out. We found out really early on that once students leave housing, or leave Southeast Tech, it's a lot harder for them to come back. So if we say, I really thought I was going to do business, but I kind of want to do early childhood, but I can't take any of those classes this semester, you can stay in housing. If they're working a part-time job, they can continue to do that and re-enroll again in the spring semester. So we always want to give them options. There's never a we can't help you, this is the end of the road kind of a thing. We always want to leave them an avenue that they can take to really take hold of their future and move forward in a positive direction. Focus on wellness. I think this is where we probably could have the most improvement. We don't have a lot of facilities on campus like a gym or things like that where we can just overtly promote physical wellness. But we do a lot of other things with those things in mind as well. Physical and emotional wellness, we do communicate with students who are ill. We always have influenza go through the building every year, just like you guys do with the K-12 system. So are you keeping in contact with your professors? Are your roommates Cloroxing your entire apartment so none of them get the illness as well? We do have had students with family emergencies, students whose parents pass away. All they need to do is email us. We let all their instructors know what's going on. They don't have to worry about messing with that kind of communication while they have that going on. We talk a lot about personal safety in floor meetings and email communications, and all of my housing staff are certified Title IX investigators as well. We attend Title IX training every year to make sure that we're on top of best practices regarding Title IX issues. Mental health issues, we're starting to see an increase in some mental health things that, in housing, not so much in the actual events themselves, but just the amount of students that are reporting it to us. So we do partner with our Southeast Tech counseling staff. We can mandate counseling as a part of a judicial action if we think it's necessary. We do also do wellness checks as a part of our duties as staff. Usually it ranges between 5 and 10 a year, and they kind of vary in severity. Most of the time it's because Billy or Susie hasn't called mom and dad for 3 days and they're worried and they just lost their phone or the battery went dead. But there are other things that come up where we need to make sure that we're keeping on top of that. Again, passive programming, we do a lot of different things: winter driving tips, effects of alcohol, benefits of sleep, healthy recipes. It doesn't always have to come out of the box. So things like that. And then institutional values. We do have a judicial process with housing. Typically, we allow students to have 3 violations of policies before they're removed. Thankfully, the overwhelming majority of our students who are involved in a policy violation, they stop at a first-time offense. But we do have second or third time offenders, and we kind of work through that with those students. We meet with them one-on-one. We explain to them the process. There's a housing policies and procedures handbook that all the students get before they arrive, so they're aware of what's expected of them. But yeah, it's our expectation that students that live on campus fall in line with our institutional policies and procedures. We have high expectations for our students, and we expect to meet them, and they in turn so far have met those expectations. To be eligible for Southeast Tech housing, you first have to be accepted into your program. And then once that happens, you can apply to housing. So all of my Southeast Tech housing residents are students. New student contracts are a 9-month commitment. They have to be there for the fall and spring semester. Our second-year students, we allow a little bit more flexibility. We have students who leave for internships, clinicals, so they are allowed to sign for a semester-only contract. We do also offer a contract buyout. This is another one of those examples where we try to allow a little bit more flexibility. If a student were to terminate their classes before a certain date, rather than paying for the entirety of their contract, they can pay a buyout charge, which is significantly lower than the rest of their entire contract, and not have to worry about paying for an apartment that they're not using anymore. We really want to try to be flexible and accommodating to students even as they're leaving Southeast Tech, because that also gives us a greater opportunity for them to come back and join us again. This just gives you a little bit of our rent history. And again, I apologize for it being a little small, but those bottom 4 years, there's a little caret. That was where our summer housing contract was mandatory. So you'll see a pretty significant change in the numbers after that. Once we changed it to a summer semester option, we had to adjust our rental rates a little bit. But you can kind of see, we've been trying to increase with what we've been seeing with apartments off campus around us. We want to make sure we stay competitive, but we don't want to price ourselves out of an area where a student could afford us. So right now we're at $2,400 per semester. That's an all-inclusive charge too, so that's all your cable, internet, utilities, laundry. You pay it at the same time as tuition fees. It goes on the same bill as tuition fees. The nice part about doing it that way is if you have extra financial aid left over, once your classes are paid for, it can automatically start paying for your rent. So most of my students get at least a little bit of help from financial aid in paying for their housing. Some students get all of their housing paid for, still have some left over. It really depends on financial aid, where they're at with that. So the last thing I want to go through is just kind of a typical year in housing. August is move-in week. We also, when we do move-in week, students are allowed to move into housing on the day before their jump start day. So they actually get about a week before classes begin to move into housing to get them acclimated a little bit, especially if they're from out of town. You know, where's the nearest Walmart, where's the nearest Hy-Vee, things like that. We do door decorations on every door. It's got their name on it. We want to make sure that there's something personal on everybody's door when they come in. You know, we're glad to see you here, things like that. We do floor meetings. We partner with student activities to do a backyard bash, which is an inflatable movie screen in the back lawn of housing. There's usually outdoor games. There's food catered. I think last year we had about 300 students at it, so it's a really popular event towards the end of August. September through November, we do a lot of housing activities. I think one of the most unique ones that we do is our attendance challenge. We challenge our housing students to attend every class for the first 30 days. If they do that, they get a free pop and a free candy bar from housing staff. And it's really not the thing they get that's important, it's the recognition. We've did some tracking on this past year, and in the fall semester, the students who met that challenge averaged a 3.21 GPA at the end of the semester. Everybody else averaged a 2.72. So, you know, get there early, be there often. That's a really important thing to kind of impress upon those students. If you can do it for 30 days, you develop those good habits, you'll be able to do it for the rest of the semester. So we did it again this semester too, and I'll be interested to see if those statistics hold out. We do a catered Thanksgiving dinner every November. We had about 70 students at that this year. I have some students who don't really have homes to go back to for Thanksgiving, or they live too far away to be able to go home. So to be able to have the full Thanksgiving spread, we eat family style at long tables. So it's a real Thanksgiving meal that they can eat with their friends. We do birthday signs. Every time a student has a birthday, they get a sign on their door for that month wishing them a happy birthday. We do door decorating contests, and you should see some of the things that these students do with their doors. We give them gift cards, and the amount they spend on decorations far outweighs the amount that they would win for gift cards. But for Halloween and Christmas, we've done that before. We do individual resident meetings, and those can be anything: academic concerns, roommate concerns, personal concerns, policy violations. Just to give you an example of some of the things that I've done before, I had a student a few years back find out she was 18 years old. It was the first day of classes, and she found out she was pregnant. And her, the father of the baby was getting deployed that same week. So we talked about are you going to tell your parents? If so, how are you going to tell your parents? Let's practice on how you're going to do those sorts of things. So it's not just academically related. It's whatever happens in the life of an 18 to 21-year-old. Those are the types of things that we deal with. So. We manage vacancies. We do have some mid-semester move-ins, not a lot, but we do have some of those. We always are seeking out new spring residents. We usually get between 15 and 25 new spring residents a year. December is a busy month for us. I think some people think that we follow the academic calendar quite a bit, so we wouldn't be as busy in December, but typically when students are gone, that's when I'm the busiest. We have a lot of move-outs during the December, the end of the semester time. We lose some students to clinicals, graduations, internships. We do have students who transfer or withdraw for various reasons. We prepare for new spring residents. We do a lot of safety and maintenance checks. We're always checking smoke detectors, furnace filters, those sorts of things. We identify needed maintenance. If there's that hole in the wall that no one's told us about yet, we usually find it at Christmas time. January through April looks a lot like our fall semester. That's usually when we fill up. Up until the last 2 years, we usually filled up to mid-April to mid-May, but now we're really advancing that forward a little bit. So, and then May is move-out week. We usually move out about 140 students in 5 days. So I put a lot of miles on that last week of the semester. Apartment walkthroughs to determine what maintenance is needed, what cleaning is needed, things like that. We still do have summer residents. We have about 50 to 60. We don't have to take classes at Southeast Tech to be a student in housing for the summer. You just have to be enrolled in the next fall. One of the reasons we do that is a lot of our students have part-time jobs, or they gain part-time jobs as the year goes on. We want them to be able to continue doing that before they enter into their fall semester classes. And we also get some brand new students in the summer that are trying to get their gen ed courses done before they begin their program courses in the fall. June and July is when we do roommate placement. We usually spend about 30 staff hours placing roommates. We take a lot of time. Sometimes I tell people it's like putting a puzzle together upside down in the dark, but it's not a science by any stretch of the imagination. But our goal is to have those out by right after July 4th. We do have a before you move in sheet, and that gives those topics of discussion to talk to their roommates about before they actually come onto campus. Summer cleaning and maintenance, furniture replacement, that all happens during the summer as well. And then year-round, we do a lot of housing tours for admissions, usually between 75 and 100, and our staff takes care of that. Visitation and registration days, we always have a housing table. My housing staff and I are very active on committees on Southeast Tech, and we do collaborate with Southeast Tech on certain special projects. For example, our Title IX policies and procedures were written by housing staff, and our emotional support animal and service animal policy, we partnered with our counseling staff to develop that policy as well. So looking to the future, my Housing Foundation Board began strategic planning this past fall. We're really taking a close look at expansion because we're filling up so fast, because we have such a high-performing group of students. We think we can replicate that for a bigger group. There are some things that need to be looked at with that, with that clause in our Constitution saying that we can't have housing. Is there a way that we can work with that, or do we want our Housing Foundation to go as we had previously and just expand what we've been doing? I just had a great meeting with our Student Government Association. They are very on board with having more housing. They understand its importance, and they want to have that as well. We're looking at different ways that we can partner with Southeast Tech to enhance the campus community, whether that's partnering with new initiatives or new amenities. If they can be used by housing students, we want to be able to help that become a reality with Southeast Tech. And hopefully there will be more details about where we land, a more concrete plan moving forward this coming summer. So. That is all I have as far as information for you guys today. Do you have any questions for me?
Has a needs study been done, like how many more units would be full or close to full that you guys could support?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a hard number to get, and the reason why is because we develop a wait list, and my wait list has been anywhere between 50 and 150 people historically. Once you reach a certain point on your wait list, they stop putting themselves on the wait list. So that number is so hard for us to really grab. When you ask students, we've done student surveys before, just informal conversations with students. More is always better. So we've been talking with students. If we were to build more housing, what kind of housing would you want? We've really started to notice that students value privacy more than they value space. Wish list thinking here, I would like to see maybe some studio or 2-bedroom apartments as an option. That would also be a lot more attractive to my non-traditional student population. So we could not only add more housing students coming in, brand new students, but maybe our existing students as well might find an on-campus option more attractive because they might only have one roommate or be living by themselves, as opposed to finding something off-campus too. I should also mention we've developed some pretty good partnerships with off-campus property management companies as well. So even if we are full, we don't say we can't help you. We will say, we have these different groups. They're student-friendly. They have student discounts. You can go and take a look at the apartments the same day they register for classes. So I never want to tell students we can't help you. There's always another option. There's always something else that we can do. So that's a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
A lot going on, and I think it's good to engage. I think part of the things that people continue on with their education, and they still want to feel like they're a part of something and that community. And so you don't have to go to college to have that kind of social dorm type of student life. We want people to be involved within their campus and have a sense of pride about attending Southeast Tech. And so it seems like you're doing a great job, and your team is doing a great job of really building a community of students and a support system, and getting them involved in not just Sioux Falls or just going to and from class, but getting to know their neighbor and getting, and being incentivized for building good study habits and attendance and things like that. So
Absolutely.
Great job on,
Yeah, we've discovered that access and success go hand in hand. So the more access you have to something, the more successful you'll be at that thing. So you can have no more access to Southeast Tech than living on the actual
Right.
campus. With the weather-related activities that we've had, my students don't have any excuses not to be able to go to class. They don't have an interstate to worry about or
Right.
roads to travel. They can just walk right across the parking lot. So, yeah,
good work.
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Look forward to hearing the plans for potential expansion, so that'll be exciting. May I have a motion to acknowledge the Housing Foundation update, please?
So moved.
Second,
Discussion?
just great information, and thank you. It was very good information to know about this, and I'm
you
excited
very
for
much.
the students who get to participate in the program there.
Thank you.
All right. No other discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign, that motion carries. And on to the Foundation Director Search Update. President Griggs.
Yep, good afternoon, President Alberti, members of the board. The next two items, I have very short updates for you, but important events that we wanted to at least bring to your attention here. I think you're all aware that our foundation director, Shelley Unruh, resigned and has taken a position with the city. It's a great opportunity for her, but with the last meeting of the foundation board, Southeast Tech was requested to run a search for her replacement. So we have begun that process. We have a search committee established. We had actually our first meeting of the search committee last week. 5 foundation board members are on that search committee. There's 1 faculty member and I think 2 staff and myself. So it's a fairly large committee. I was impressed, though, by the board's willingness to participate in that search process. I think it shows you their investment and the commitment they have and the importance of that position going forward. I just spoke with our HR director before we came over this afternoon, and she has posted the position on the website. It'll go into higheredjobs.com, Indeed, LinkedIn, so forth. So we'll get that out there, and by all indications, we're hoping we'll have a good, strong pool to consider. And that completes that report.
Okay, thank you. Suppose we need a motion to acknowledge the report. So moved.
Second,
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign, that motion carries.
Sure, and as soon as you approve that report, I thought of one more thing to add. So, I don't know if you have to formally amend your motion or not, but
We'll-
with the search process itself is the launch of the search, and what we're hoping to do is leave the position open, the vacancy announcement open for 3 weeks, poll the search committee in. We have some pre-screening criteria we'll evaluate. Whether we do a first round of phone interviews or we're able to just select 3 finalists, as an example. We're going to try to move forward, though, very quickly with the search. What we hope to do is to have the finalists on campus before we have graduation in May. So that's a pretty aggressive timeline for any search, let alone, I think, an academic search. But we are going to move forward as quickly as we can, and again, hoping that we have a solid pool. The next item that we have on the agenda is just a short update, again, on a couple of pieces of legislation that we have been following fairly closely, probably having the most significant impact as far as new legislation on the technical institutes. The first was House Bill 1039, which allows the South Dakota Technical Institutes to use, or would allow us to use, the Obligation Recovery Center to collect outstanding student bad debt. This would be similar to the Board of Regents institutions, and as a state entity, I think the technical institutes felt it would be beneficial to be able to use that service provided to state organizations. So that bill actually passed in the House and Senate last week and is now awaiting Governor Noem's signature. So that has moved forward nicely. The other piece of legislation that we were following very, very closely was Senate Bill 122, Guns on Campus. And that bill caused quite a bit of concern and debate on campus. We forwarded that information to our student government organization for their consideration. We really wanted their voice in this conversation and asked them to reach out to their legislators as well. And the bill was defeated on the Senate floor last week, so our liaison, our lobbyist in the legislature indicated that it may be gone for this year, but in all likelihood will reappear in the future, so that'll be something again that we'll have to continue to monitor. So those are the two pieces of legislation I think that have had, at least for this session, the most direct impact on the technical institutes.
Any questions for Bob on the legislative update? If not, can I get a motion to acknowledge that report?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Bob, anything to add?
No, I don't have any new, no amendments there. I did want to thank Andy, though, for his help. He has done a tremendous job. Coming in as I did from Minnesota, one of the unique things I think President gets an opportunity to deal with are issues that happen over the weekends with students on maybe some extracurricular activities at times and so forth. And I really have to compliment Andy and his staff. They do a wonderful job in terms of working with those students to intervene before we have serious issues. And so I think that has gone very quietly, which is something that, frankly, in higher ed can be a little unusual in terms of disciplinary matters and so forth. So I give Andy and his staff full credit for the wonderful job they do in terms of working with those students. And he is there in terms of holidays, weekends, other times when those issues come up. And I want to thank him for all of his help and his time. So thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a motion second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Anything else to come before the board? If not, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We are adjourned.